The advice was clear, categorical and absolute from the Department of Environment that on the matters of national environmental significance, this project, which is 300 kilometres inland, remote outback, dry, dusty, clearly meets the matters of national environmental significance. Greg Hunt, former Environment Minister. Deep in northeast Australia's outback, underneath grassy eucalypt woodlands and vast grazing lands, scattered with cattle stations, lies one of the world's largest known untapped coal reserves. CNN. I personally have had politicians say to me, "It's all bloody bush out there, love. Don't worry. We can do the land clearing. It's all bloody weeds." Or they say, "The farmers have already stuffed it up." Conservationist. If you go out to Claremont, it's not very pretty. It's just barren. It's scrub. It doesn't matter. You know, you couldn't even tell where the mine. You can't tell where these things are because it just all looks the same. There's nothing attractive about it. It's not like you are knocking out prime residential area or anything like that, or where people can have hobby farms or anything like that. There's just nothing there. Local industry rep. The Carmichael site itself is barren land, but those who oppose the mine say that activating it would still harm the fragile ecosystem of the nearby Great Barrier Reef. BBC News. Good cattle land. There's a lot of bull dust. It's not cropping country, it's cattle. Where's the bull dust? Out Adani way, that country, sandy sort of a country. Group of local residents. As Frydenberg said, the Carmichael mine has gone through the process. It has been challenged in the courts multiple times and has been upheld. It's a mine that is in the Galilee Basin. It's 300 kilometres inland in a dry and dusty part of Queensland. And it has received strong support from local mayors, from the unions and local communities. The Australian. The reality is that Carmichael is pretty well in the middle of nowhere. Local industry rep. Mr. Frydenberg said the proposed mine in central Queensland's Galilee Basin had been through extensive state and federal environmental approvals and posed no risk to the Great Barrier Reef. There were strict conditions that were attached, and the mine itself, contrary to what Bill Shorten might say, is in the Galilee Basin, 300 kilometres inland, in a dry, dusty bowl of Queensland, he said. The Australian. The route to the Carmichael mine is a long, lonely ride in the wilderness. A paved road transforms into a wide dirt track before you eventually reach the remote piece of land which has so divided Australia. BBC News. The project will not only lift the economic prospects of the hitherto barren Australian outback, but also help Indian power plants source cheap coal. Business Standard. It's billy goat country. You wouldn't let your dog live out there. It's that harsh and dry. Now, I know there were issues around water basins and things like that, but it's not the Hunter Valley. And people living in Melbourne who say we're going to save the environment, you've got no idea what it's like to live out here. It's very barren, arid country. Local business owner. The harsh Australian landscape, drought-stricken and parched, stretches for hundreds of miles of nothingness below the 12-seater plane flying northwest from Rockhampton towards Australia's most controversial project. An hour after takeoff, the ground below turns green, and in stark contrast, up ahead lies the red sand airstrip and temporary workers' camp of the Adani Carmichael mine site. The Morning Bulletin. Half the time, you can't even tell that the mine is there, that it's different to the other area because they're just all dirt anyway. Local industry rep. Anastasia Palaszczuk's on-the-run decision to veto a $1 billion loan from the Federal Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility for a rail line from Abbott Point to the proposed Adani coal mine would undermine further development in the barren Galilee Basin. The Australian. And it's an area that's 300 kilometres inland. It's remote, dry, dusty Queensland. I've visited the site myself. It's an area that's been used over the years for cattle, amongst other things. It's a very dry, dusty area. If you imagine outback Queensland, this is deep outback Queensland. Greg Hunt, former Environment Minister. I get to travel around Australia. I've been to Queensland, from the outback to the coast. It's a beautiful country and it's worth preserving, but I also travel to mining communities, coal communities. Bill Shorten, former opposition leader. And that drive you did from Claremont, it's the same country right through. It's hot and dry and arid. Local business owner. The site itself is barren land, but those who oppose the mine say that activating it would spell doom for the environment and ruin Australia's beaches. BBC News. The mine is approximately 300 kilometres inland from the Queensland coast, in a dry and dusty region of outback Queensland. Mining will not have any direct impacts on the reef. Australian Government, Department of Environment. We've got a lot of what we call low-valued land, like remote, out of sight, arid, and you're probably not going to get too many complaints about some of those mines being developed. Industry rep. The bulk of the area around the Adani mine is mostly arid land that's been cleared ages ago, but there's a remnant forest of something like 500 acres, where the black-throated finch is and where the koala colony is. Local resident.